Okay, I don't know how I'm gonna make this video, but at the same time, I want to try to make it as interesting as I could. And I want to talk about the events that happened in Ohio with the train accident and the movie White Noise that I watched back in 2022. Now, for those that don't know, the movie White Noise, directed by Noah Baumbach, is about a college professor named Jack Bradley, and his family, in a comfortable suburban life, is upheld when a nearby chemical leak causes the airborne toxic event, releasing a noxious black cloud over the region that forces Bradley's family to evacuate. Throughout the movie, it presents the idea of death and how much it can affect our lives if we slowly think about it every day. It does try to have some topics about other things, but most of it is mostly in relation with the idea of death. The movie also goes through interesting characters that we are introduced throughout the movie, with so many characters like Bradley's family, characters that work with Bradley, and his wife. Now, all of this that I have just pointed out all culminates to the end of the movie, which, near at the end of the movie, is quite interesting, but at the same time is kind of hilarious. But before I go into the end of the movie, I also want to talk about the Ohio train incident. In 2023, the Ohio train derailment occurred on February the 3rd, 2023, at 8:55 p.m. Eastern Time, when 38 cars of Norfolk Southern Freight Train carried a hazardous material derailing in East
Palestine,
Ohio, United States. Now, for why I am wanting to talk about the movie White Noise and the Ohio train incident, I want to talk about the story of how I realized these two were basically coincidence. And for why that is, I have to go back to the movie White Noise and explain about the ending. At around the ending of the movie, we get to see Bradley and his wife driving down the streets in order to reach the hospital. After overdriving the hospital and basically parking at the front of the door, we get to see the license plate of Bradley's car. On Bradley's 1979 station wagon, we get to see the license plate, and on the license plate, it has the word Ohio. I'm just letting that sink in for a while. Bradley's car and the entire movie location takes place in Ohio. Now, for why this is funny, it's because my brother said, this whole thing was taking place in Ohio? Shit is happening in Ohio all the time. That's what he literally said when he saw the license plate. And for why that is, it's mostly because it's in relation with the Ohio meme. You know, shit is happening in Ohio, where basically there's not that much that's happening in Ohio, but we try to think that there's a lot happening in Ohio. But unfortunately, I think there's some shit that's happening in Ohio, which also relates with the Ohio train incident. Oh, and speaking about the train incident, I also want to talk about how I was introduced to the train incident. This happened a couple weeks ago while I was at school in my 4th period class. While I was reading in my class, the fire drill started and we basically had to evacuate outside. While evacuating, I was talking with my teacher, which we'll be calling Mr. Bass, about books that we have recently read and about the train incident. While I was talking with Mr. Bass pointed out a book he was reading, and that book was White Noise. When I heard that he was reading the book White Noise, I told him that I watched the movie White Noise. And I started to talk about how much I loved the movie, and I pointed out the train incident. When Mr. Bass heard about the train incident that happened in the movie White Noise, Mr. Bass also told me about the Ohio train derailment that happened a couple days ago while I was talking with him. While hearing this made me laugh, but at the same time baffled that the movie White Noise presented a train scene that happened in Ohio, and then there's an event that recently happened that took place in Ohio, which at the same time was a train incident. A chemical train incident. These two literally had a chemical incident, which took place in Ohio. All in all, I just wanted to make a video about my experience on learning about the Ohio train incident and my experience about watching the movie White Noise. But before I go, I highly recommend you to watch the movie White Noise. It's an interesting ride, and in general, it's a good movie that has some amazing acting in it. But with all that being said and done, thank you all for watching this video of me basically connecting the Ohio train incident with White Noise the movie. If you want to see more of my content that I create, I highly recommend to go to my channel.